Egypt. You've known that word since childhood. Pyramids, pharaohs, Cleopatra, the Sphinx. But what I'm about to tell you, almost nobody knows. There was a moment in history, not a brief moment, but an entire century, when Egypt was not ruled by Egyptians. When the great pharaohs seated on the throne of the gods were outsiders from the south. When people whom the Egyptians themselves called barbarians rose to claim the most powerful throne in the ancient world. And you know what the most insane part is? These people built more pyramids than Egypt itself. Their civilization lasted 3,000 years, longer than most countries on today's map have even existed. Their achievements left an invaluable mark on human history and culture. Yet almost no one knows their name. They were called the Kushites. And this is their story. I strongly recommend watching to the end, because their story holds a kind of understanding that could genuinely change the way you see the world. Let's start with what nobody talks about. While the whole world was looking north, toward the Mediterranean, toward Greece, toward Rome, deep in the heart of Africa, south of Egypt, a civilization was being born. The place was called Nubia. Today it's Sudan, but back then it was something else entirely. Around 2500 BC, at the very same time Egyptians were building the pyramids at Giza, a state began to form here, along the banks of the Nile. It had many names. The Egyptians called it Ta-Seti, the land of the bow, because Nubian archers were the best in the world. Not just good, the best. So exceptional that Egyptians hired them into their armies for thousands of years. But what the Egyptians never expected was that these barbarians with bows would one day come not to serve, but to conquer. The capital of the Kingdom of Kush was first established at Kerma, a city archaeologists only uncovered in the 20th century. And you know what they found? Palaces, temples, necropolises with thousands of burials, pottery of such quality that specialists still refer to it as Kerma ware, a distinct style in art history. These were not savages. This was an advanced civilization. Egypt realized that far too late. Around 1700 BC, the Kushites had expanded so far, they seized part of southern Egypt. The Egyptians were terrified. They built an entire chain of fortresses along the Nile, more than 10 fortified strongholds. But you know what happened next. Egypt weakened. The Hyksos, a people from the north, invaded the Nile Delta. And while Egypt fought on two fronts, Kush only grew stronger. Let's jump 1,000 years forward. Egypt is powerful again. The new kingdom, great pharaohs, Thutmose, Ramesses. They conquered Nubia, established control over Kush. They built temples here, installed their governors, and took Nubian gold. Nubian gold. That's a story of its own. The very word Nubia comes from the Egyptian nub, meaning gold. Kush was literally made of gold. It had the richest gold mines in the ancient world. But then, the new kingdom collapsed. The 8th century BC. Egypt is fragmented. The country has split into several warring states. Priests fight warlords, cities fight cities, and then, from the south, came Pie, king of Kush, whose capital had by then moved to the city of Napata at the foot of the sacred mountain, Jebel Barkal. Pia looked north and saw chaos. He saw a country that had once been the greatest in the world, now tearing itself apart, and he made a decision. In 747 BC, the army of Kush marched north. Listen to how the sources describe this. On the Victory Stele of Pa, discovered in the 19th century, it is written that he stopped to pray to the god Amun before attacking. Because Pa did not see himself as a conqueror, but as a liberator. He came to save Egypt, to restore order, to serve the gods. City after city opened its gates before him. Memphis, the ancient capital, fell after a siege. And then Pi stood before the gates of Heliopolis, the sacred city of the god Ra. What did he do? He bathed, put on white robes, and entered the temple to perform a sacrifice as a pharaoh, because from that moment on, he was one. Pi became the founder of the 25th dynasty, the dynasty historians call Nubian or Ethiopian. For the first time in Egyptian history, the throne of the gods was taken by a man from the south of the Nile. After Pi, power passed to his brother Shabaka, and this is where something remarkable begins. The Kushites did not destroy Egypt. They revived it. Shabaka restored ancient temples. He ordered tabs preserved on fragile papyrus, texts that could have been lost forever, to be carved into stone. That document is known today as the Memphite theology, one of the most important philosophical texts of ancient Egypt. It survived only because a Kushite pharaoh ordered it chiseled into stone. Barbarians? Do you still think these were barbarians? The next pharaoh was Taharka, and this is a name you need to remember. Taharka ruled from 690 to 664 BC. Under him, Egypt experienced a true renaissance. Temples were built from the Nile Delta to the depths of Sudan. At Karnak, Egypt's greatest temple complex, he erected columns 21 meters tall. They still stand today. Taharka pursued an active foreign policy. He formed alliances. He traded with the Phoenicians. And this is the most extraordinary part. His name appears in the Bible. In the second book of Kings, chapter 19, when the Assyrian king Sennacherib was besieging Jerusalem, and the Jewish king Hezekiah prayed for salvation, word came, Tirhaka, king of Ethiopia, has set out to fight against you. Taharka came to the rescue. The Assyrian army withdrew. A Kushite pharaoh saved Jerusalem. This is not a legend. It is recorded in the sacred book of 3 world religions. But history wouldn't be history without a reckoning. Assyria. If you want to understand how terrifying the Assyrian Empire was, just know this. It was the first state in history to use systematic terror as an instrument of policy. They recorded on their steles how many enemies they impaled, how many cities they burned, how many peoples they deported. They were a war machine the world had never seen before. And in 671 BC, the Assyrian king unleashed that machine on Egypt. Taharka fought back. Twice, 3 times he retreated, rebuilt his army and counterattacked. But in 663 BC, the Assyrians took Thebes, the sacred city of Amun. They looted its temples. They carried off the statues of the gods. The sack of Thebes was so catastrophic that the prophet Nahum wrote about it. Yet another biblical passage connected to this story. The Kushites lost Egypt. Taharka died in exile. But you know what? They did not break. Having lost Egypt, Kush did not vanish. It was reborn. the capital moved even further south, to Meroe. And here begins perhaps the most astonishing chapter of this story. Meroe became one of the great iron-smelting centers of the ancient world. Iron was produced here in such quantities that archaeologists excavating the city found mountains of iron slag, literal mountains. Iron means weapons, tools, power. Meroe traded with Egypt, with Arabia, with India, with the Roman Empire. Yes, the Roman Empire. And they had diplomatic relations. In 23 BC, Rome attempted to seize part of Kush's territory. You know how that ended? The Kushites crushed the Roman garrison at Aswan. They captured statues of Augustus, the first Roman emperor. The head of one of those statues was found buried beneath the threshold of a Kushite temple, positioned so that every person entering would step on the face of Rome's emperor. That is a political statement, in a language that needs no translation. And now, the pyramids. By this point, Meroe had built more pyramids than all of Egypt combined. Just sit with that number. Over 200 pyramids. They look different, narrower, taller, sharper, as if reaching upward toward the sky. Some are barely 10 meters tall. Others are true giants. Inside, paintings, inscriptions, images of gods. Outside, small chapels with reliefs depicting kings and queens in Egyptian style, but wearing Nubian adornments. This was a synthesis of two great cultures, not a copy, not an imitation, a unique civilization entirely its own. And one more fact that will blow your mind. Meroe had its own writing system, the Meroitic alphabet, one of the first alphabets in the history of Africa, created independently. We can read it, in the sense that we know what sounds the letters represent. But we cannot understand the meaning of the texts. The language has not been deciphered. 3,000 years of history. And the final words of this civilization remain a mystery to us. In the 4th century AD, Meroe fell. It was destroyed by the Kingdom of Aksum, the predecessor of modern Ethiopia. But was that the only reason? Historians still debate. Some say climate change was to blame. The desert was advancing, rains were retreating, the land stopped yielding harvests. Others point to trade routes. They shifted, and Meroe lost its role as a transit hub. Still others cite internal wars. The truth, most likely, is a combination of everything. Great civilizations rarely die from a single cause. They fade when everything goes wrong at once. Meroe was abandoned. Sand swallowed the pyramids. The archers who had once ruled Egypt dissolved into history, and the world forgot for 1,400 years. Only in the 19th century did European travelers begin finding strange, narrow pyramids in the Sudanese desert. The local people did not know who had built them, and when scholars began to dig, they discovered an entire world that no one expected to find. Why did history forget Kush? Partly were because winners write history. Egypt, Rome, Greece, they left behind texts in languages that were deciphered first. Partly because Sudan remained largely closed to large-scale excavation for a long time. Partly because it's easier to think of history as something that happened in familiar places. But here is what I want you to take away from this video. 3,000 years, more pyramids than Egypt. Pharaohs whose names appear in the Bible. Diplomats who traded with Rome. An alphabet we still cannot read. The Kingdom of Kush is not a footnote in Egyptian history. It is a great civilization in its own right. And the reason it isn't taught is not because it isn't fascinating, it's because we haven't truly discovered it yet. If you found this valuable, a like and a comment go a long way. It genuinely helps stories like this reach the people who need them. I read every comment, and the next video might be about exactly what you write. Thanks for watching. See you next time.